Hello everybody, my name is Mark DeSalvo. I'm the elected town moderator here in North Andover. Welcome to, I think, our 12th edition of On the Warrant. I'm joined here by our town manager, Melissa Rodriguez, by the chair of our select board, Janice Phillips, by the superintendent of schools, Greg Gilligan, and the chair of our finance committee, Donovan O'Connell. We're here just to review what's going on at town meeting, but I thought we'd open because you can read the town warrant on the town website or pick up a copy at the town clerk's office if you wanted to read it physically. But I wanted us to have a brief conversation about process first. What happens before a town meeting? And maybe we can start from the town side, Madam Manager,
Sure.
about what that process is. Does it happen the day after the last town meeting? Or do you
feels
get
like
a little bit of a respite?
It feels like it does, but it really kind of does. I mean, so we start the process really in August when we do the budget goals with the select board. We start our capital planning in August, and we start kind of creating the budget book that early. And so that's really a very iterative process. And then we move towards when we open the warrant, which is usually in the February timeframe. This year, stay open for about 6 weeks. And from that point forward, we're really rolling towards town meeting.
So the town boards and commissions and departments are preparing their budget, which is the principal policy document for our schools. And the citizens then get involved after the February opening of the warrant. What happens when citizens file something?
What's really interesting is any voting member of our community can file a citizen petition.
Well, 10 of them, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we received several this year, and what happens then is they present their language to the select board. They come in and talk to us about their warrant article, and we, during our process, make some determination about whether we are in favor of their.
I think we'll get to them. That's perhaps one of the most interesting things about our warrant this year.
I would agree.
So, Mr. Superintendent, what happens on the school side?
So on the school side, we work closely with the town, and I work closely with the town manager, particularly around the capital projects that involve the schools. And we start actually our budget process in the fall to get ready, because the budget is part of one of the warrant articles for the entire town. Is one of the most important aspects of providing the best services for our students.
And that review process at the school committee and executive level is what?
Yeah, so we start in the fall, and then right before the winter recess, looking at what our needs are, what the budget will be, and the superintendent presents a recommended budget in January, and then it goes to the school committee for vote, and then it goes on to the finance committee, the select board, and ultimately the town manager. And maybe not ultimately, finally the vote is at town meeting.
Appreciate that. So it sounds to me, Donovan, that the finance committee doesn't get involved until after the budget is done by all of the town boards.
Well,
is that true?
That's just not true,
know.
Fortunately, and I know you know that. Well, I mean, certainly as the person who appoints the members of the finance committee, which we appreciate. The finance committee, gets started sort of right around the same time the town manager would. We have 2 representatives on the revenue fixed cost committee, so we help the town manager and the finance director determine how much, and the superintendent determine how much money there is to spend in the next fiscal budget. So we meet with them and go through the numbers and come to a consensus, and then the town manager is able to draft her budget, working with the town departments and directors, and during that time we meet with those folks as well to sort of poke and prod at assumptions and be the second set of eyes, although there's 9 of us, so I guess it would be the 18.
So I always characterize, that's good. Thank you. And none of them are short-sighted either, because
no, mine are corrected,
very
but
good.
they're corrected well. So.
I always characterize the finance committee as the most consequential unknown committee in town. That the budget writers are actually crafting for your eyes and ears about the policy instruments of the town. Are you, and who are these members? They're appointed by me as the town moderator, which is a requirement of our charter. But how does the group actually structure itself?
So, well, we come together. There are 9 of us. We come together every year. The first thing we do actually is appoint or vote to appoint a chair and a vice chair.
And you've had that privilege now for a
2.
couple
This is
of
my
times.
second year. Yeah.
Well done, by the way.
Thank you. It is quite a privilege. It's a good group of folks, and so we organize first. We decide who's going to be represent us on the Revenue Fixed Costs Committee, any other bodies or boards that we may need to keep an eye on. We sort of determine who's going to do that from among us, and then we start to get down to business. Quite frankly, Mark.
Well, let's get down to business. Let's start about the principal policy document in our community, which is the town budget. As my read, it's something like $129 million this year.
Yes.
Why don't you talk about any particular initiatives or things that you think are most appropriate?
Sure.
Melissa?
So on the town side, it's really a routine budget for us. There are some increases, but they mostly are goods and services this year. So what we basically have seen is that things cost more money, just like they are at home. So electricity being up, things like fuel increasing, that's what's really required us to make any budget increases that we have. We pretty much have sustained services on the town side.
Did it start with a policy document?
The budget.
The budget.
Well,
Yeah,
yes,
goals.
it started with the goals that the select board set financially in last summer, and we've moved along from there. As we said, you move along to all the other boards and committees and the directors of the departments, and particularly looking at what their capital needs are. and things
Okay,
like that.
so I'm hearing a stasis budget after several years of real growth, number one, and also a real import in terms of what we had to deal with from a public health point of view with COVID and everything else that the community has suffered. Same circumstance on the school side?
Yes, so our budget's it's tied to our strategic plan, our goals as a school system, and also to the school committee directives. And so ultimately the goal for the school budget is to provide the services our students need as we continue to navigate the impact of COVID and as we continue to provide the best education possible for all students in North Andover.
Any particular initiatives or out of the ordinary, either increases or decreases in the budget?
I think what's really been good about this budget from a school perspective is the budget increase of 5.5% and working with the town manager has allowed us to continue to keep on and add positions that are much needed for students. And that's everything from counselors at all levels, special educators, teachers, library and media specialists, to bilingual parent liaisons, custodians, really across all levels, all areas.
And what drives that?
Need, although pandemic era federal funding and grants has ended, the need has not. And so working with the town manager and the select board and the school committee, what's been really special in North Andover is the ability to work together so that you don't fall off that cliff of grant funding and all of a sudden the next year it's gone. So we've worked for a multi-year plan in order to keep the services our students need and deserve.
So the Finance Committee has the responsibility of recommending to the community whether or not these professionally prepared and public policy board reviewed budgets ought to be voted on by town meeting. What was not your process, but your conclusions about that?
Yeah, so our conclusion was that we unanimously would recommend a favorable vote at town meeting by those who are participating on both the municipal and the school budget. We felt that both parties working together and separately came up with fantastic fiscally sound budget. Once again, it covers both short-term needs, as the superintendent noticed, and long-term goals that the town and the schools have. And it's really been, I can speak for the committee to say it's really been remarkable to see the cohesion that you get on the town side and the school side to put together a really fiscally responsible budget.
and how it melds with your conclusions in terms of where you think the generational public policy ought to go as a finance committee.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we get the opportunity to really, dig in on a lot of these policies and where the spending is by talking to the town manager and the superintendent, assistant superintendent, department directors, and make sure everything is really aligning to what they're saying they're trying to do and keeping with the greater policies and procedures of the town, and everything looks terrific.
I appreciate that. So, by my view, the principal new initiative that happens to be on the town budget side is tied to our capital accounts, our capital program. Perhaps you can give us a bit of a primer on that and where that principal big slug of money is going to be spent, how it will be spent, and how it will be financed.
Sure. So, Mr. Moderator, as you know, last year we rolled out Facilities Master Plan 2. And last town meeting was the first time we really took any initiative and votes on that. This budget continues to have that commitment to Facilities Master Plan 2. We're saving debt in it like we were before. But even more exciting is that we have the first debt payment for the middle school. And so that's and I'm sure Superintendent Gilligan can speak much more eloquently, as well as Chairman Phillips, who is on that committee. But it's a renovation and addition. It's about $21 million. We're doing it entirely within the budget, so no election required, no debt exclusion, and at $0 impact to taxpayers this year.
A lot of communities would like to be able to represent that. How was it concluded?
I would say things are going really, really well right now. The pre-planning is just about done. We expect we need town meeting to happen so we can continue on with the process and expect hopefully shovels in the ground this summer.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Please,
I was just
chime in.
I apologize. I just was excited. I think.
Lovely to see people excited.
Yeah,
about
well,
town
maybe
budget.
that's why I'm
budgets.
here.
Yes.
No, I just think that from a finance committee perspective, it's really exciting what they're doing in terms of this, and it's really exciting that it has really the most minimal impact on the taxpayer. And I think the way the town manager and the school superintendent have structured this, and the select board have structured this, should be, to your point when speaking earlier, should be, if it's not the envy of most towns, should be, because I think we've really got this down really, really well, and everyone should be proud of the plan that we've put forward.
Well, how was that done?
How is the planning done?
Yeah.
Well, you'll have to speak to the town manager.
Okay.
It was a long process and it involved a lot of people. We had a great consultant, Mount Vernon Group, who came in and did a needs and assessment of all of the school buildings, as well as the youth center and fire station 2. They basically gave us kind of, this is what needs to happen, these are your scenarios, and then we kind of got the books open and figured out how we were going to fund it. And it's not easy, and it's going to require a lot of commitment from taxpayers and from elected officials for really 17 years. But if we keep following the plan, we're really going to be able to accomplish all of those goals.
So one of the things that I'm hearing is that planning is a prerequisite to being able to successfully execute anything. What planning initiatives are there either in our budget or elsewhere on our warrant this year? On either side of the school spending, town spending, and or all other interests?
I think what you'd see on the school side, as I mentioned before, the operating budget aspect has really been thought out with our strategic plan, but also we have a long-term staffing plan. And so we've been following that model. Then from the capital side, I mean, the middle school project is a 26,000 square foot addition that is much needed, one of the largest middle schools in the region, and there's just no more space. But I think what's really important about that planning aspect is a lot of places might plan with a capital project. In this plan on the capital side, we're also built in and looking at, okay, we have 26,000 square feet for the middle school to create the most appropriate spaces for teachers to teach and students to learn, but we're also planning to add the staffing in.
And can you suggest to us, what is that physically, architecturally? What are we actually buying?
So we're really looking at creating another wing of.
Not designed yet?
They're in the process. Yeah,
It's pretty well designed.
But not presented publicly at this moment.
You'll
It's-
see it at
it's
town
a
meeting.
town
I
I'll
meeting.
see it at town
Yes,
meeting.
you'll see it.
That's what we're trying to get out. Thank you very much.
At
So-
town meeting.
So it's creating the appropriate classrooms, but also the best spaces and some smaller spaces for special education, for multilingual learners, our EL learners, for OT, PT, all the different components that go into a school that probably weren't there as part of the program in 1954 when the school was built.
1954, a long time ago, being the elder at this table, and I can promise you that was a long time ago. Notwithstanding, will the project be built at the same time that children will be going to school?
It will. We had 8 or 9 public forums, and I have to really give a lot of credit to Dr. Mealy with the public forums. We attended. The town manager was there. I saw Janice at a bunch, and Lori Burzlaff as well, the assistant town manager. Really a lot of thought went into it, but the most important aspect, and we know from building the Ann Bradstreet building, is the safety of our students. So we have experience with the construction, the trucks. So students will be there, and that's the most important aspect, will be safety, and then the second part will be minimizing anything that interferes with learning.
Appreciate that. So the only other thing that has some money attached to it specifically is the community preservation side of the aisle. Who would like to chime in about what's being recommended there?
I
Sure.
certainly can tell you from the Finance Committee, there are, I'm not sure exactly how many projects there are, but the Finance Committee looked at all of them in coordination. The chairman of the CPC came in and walked us through everything, and the Finance Committee voted overwhelmingly to support all but 2 of them. There are 2, I guess I should preface this by saying the Finance Committee has the utmost confidence and respect for everything the Community Preservation Committee does. I think that from their perspective, they put forward a great slate of projects. I think the Finance Committee takes a broader, different sort of view at these things, at all spending, than maybe the CPC does. And
because you have a broader remit compared
absolutely.
to their isolated, where they should be advocates for a specific purpose.
Absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely, for sure. And there were some members of the Finance Committee who felt a couple of the projects it was not the right time for the town to maybe be spending the money in those particular ways. Those votes were certainly close. It was heavily debated. So I can assure everyone that the Finance Committee dug in deep on all of this. But at the end of the day, I would like to reiterate that we have full confidence in the CPC. They do a great job. I think it's just a difference of opinion on 2 articles, but the rest of them we voted to favorably recommend.
Clearly, that's the responsibility of the FinCom, the Select Board, other boards to do diligence
Absolutely.
relative to that. Where did the Select Board fall down?
We ultimately voted favorable action on all of the articles they suggested. One of the things that I think is great about the CPC, it may have led to a little bit of the, having to really dig deep into these projects, is that there were so many projects brought forward, and that's, I would say, more than we've ever had. So that is a testament to the great work that committee is doing, but it also sort of opens it up for the rest of us to, have to be really diligent in our process and get to our end result. We're all looking at it from different perspectives.
I would just add too that to Janice's point, the CPTC does a great job of really digging into these projects and providing so much background information, both generally, but also financially. From speaking from a Finance Committee perspective, financially they offer us so much information. They do such a tremendous job. It's really a great committee, and they do a good job. We're very, very happy.
And there's some leverage that's afforded by the Commonwealth as well,
Absolutely.
relative to those projects.
Yep.
So there are local dollars that are augmented
by state,
by Commonwealth monies.
That's right.
So community preservations, let's stay on the letters C and P for the moment and talk about citizen petitions. You, Janice, were suggesting that you were particularly excited about the fact that there were, I think, 4 citizen petitions on the ballot. Are there any that are of particular interest?
So I'm particularly excited that we've had some youngsters, I would say, who found
like everybody else on this committee but me is a youngster.
found-
I agree.
Who found townspeople to sponsor their articles, and they were able to bring them forward.
Well, tell us what they are.
One relates to pet stores and sort of limiting sales.
We have pet stores in our community?
There is one pet store in
Uh-huh.
our community, and looking to limit sales of dogs and cats and things like that, and send people to MSPCA type places because they're overrun right now. So, and the other, I actually think you are best to tell us a little more about. The 8th grade civics kids brought forward an article relating to William Sims, and I know that that is an area of interest to you.
Well, I
so.
appreciate that. Thank you. So we had two very young groups of people or individuals who brought forward citizen petitions. They couldn't legally bring them forward themselves unless they were citizens. So like any of us who are citizens, any 10 people can bring to a regular town meeting an issue that they wish discussed. And in this case, we'll be discussing, and we'll leave it to them to argue rather than me or you, for the merits of each of their articles, but I'd encourage you to look at them. In addition, there are 2 other citizen petitions around the conduct of town meeting that have been presented. Those are principally related to the date and times and site of town meeting. And again, please take a look and make whatever judgments that you have. I do believe that the select board will be making a recommendation on each of those citizen petitions, all 4 of them.
Yes, I think
You already have,
we've
yes.
we've already made recommendations.
Okay,
on 4 of them.
shall we reveal? I think it's published already in any case.
I mean, yes, we certainly encourage people to read the warrant themselves, but we have voted favorable action on the William Sims article and the pet shop article, and then on one of the town meeting articles. I can't quite
No worries.
give you the specifics right now.
No worries.
It's the one that allows a town meeting that has been postponed to be held on a Saturday.
Or any other day.
Or any
other
other
than
day.
a Friday,
Yes.
if I
Other
remember
than-
correctly.
yeah.
And then the
Yes.
other article, which is the charter change, which would require town meeting to be in June,
Yeah.
taking away the authority of the select board to pick the month of town meeting.
And I think
They
you
voted
generally
against.
have some workabout problems relative to that as a practitioner.
We have concerns about that relating to proximity to the end of the fiscal
Okay, we
year.
can leave the argument to town meeting, but it's important for people to know that regular folks bring forth a notion that they have, and it will have the opportunity to be argued in our deliberative legislative function, which is called town meeting.
We have
All
one
of
more,
us-
Mr. Moderator,
Oh,
too.
please.
The plastic bag ban
Oh,
is actually a citizen
I
petition.
apologize, yes.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the plastic bag ban.
Sure.
I recollect that it was scheduled to come up in 2020, and the group chose not to bring it forward during the pandemic. And now it's being presented by a group of citizens with some support of the Community Sustainability Committee. Can you give us a primer on the plastic bag ban?
So it's actually being brought forward, the petitioner is a member of the Finance Committee, but she's come forward as a resident.
citizen,
Yeah.
yes.
And it applies to businesses, retail businesses, and food and milk vendors of over 3,000 square feet. So looking at it, it'd probably be upwards of about 60 total people or businesses that would be affected. We're looking at about $2,500 a month cost. $2,500 a year. She would not like this. We're gonna have to fix this one. So
Already fixed, on the record fixed.
$2,500 a year
For
us.
monitoring?
For monitoring, correct. So what we do in the town is we have a food and milk inspector who is actually a contractor. So if this does pass, we would add that on to that.
Okay, got that. Did the Finance Committee come down on any of those citizen petitions?
No, we have not.
Because,
Well, because the first few were not really germane to our purview. And the last one, we haven't looked at it yet. We may before town meeting, but that hasn't been decided by
Okay.
by the committee quite yet.
so we're a work in progress relative to the review and
We are,
diligence that you
yeah.
make. I think it's important to add kudos to the school department and the whole civic agency responsibility of our schools, and you might wish to comment about that.
Yeah, so civics has become part of the education under Mass General Law and DESE. And Mr. McGravy was an early adopter, one of the earliest in the state. And so the ability for students to identify an area, to be able to be involved and actually participate in government and advocate for things that they want to change and then actually see them change is remarkable. So we had students in front of the school committee this fall talking about their projects, and some students had worked hard to, as their student-led civics project, on water filling stations, and it came through. As a
But
result,
not before town meeting, that's something that was,
it was before town
Yeah.
meeting. So,
but that issue isn't before town meeting, is what I'm saying.
no,
Yeah,
exactly.
go ahead.
I'm just saying it's an example. So they identified things in their lives that they thought they could make this a better community, better schools, and they do a tremendous job. And Mr. McGravy's really an asset.
Well, anytime that we get students and any citizen, any resident active in the body politic so that they recognize that you can have an influence on what happens, I think this gives us a good segue opportunity to talk about town meeting itself. We will be at this town meeting back in our regular home at the North Andover High School. I know that there are many cheers about that we're not spending a significant amount of money in order to conduct a fair, open, and efficient town meeting, but because we needed to have it outside, or we had the welcome circumstance of many, many people who are interested in a specific issue and come to town meeting. We have an open town meeting, which means that any resident who is a citizen can come to town meeting and actually act as a legislator. The circumstance for us this year is that we are affording many of the usual services, including childcare availability, including ability assistance availability for those people who are hard of hearing or have sight issues, that they can literally pick up a device and read town meeting in a closed captioned kind of basis. All of the remarks in real time that any of us are making. In addition to which, we can print the warrant book in Braille as necessary. And the high school, of course, is entirely handicapped accessible, which is great. Are there any things that any of the rest of us would like to bring up about town meeting coming forward, or any encouragement that anyone wants to make about anything specifically before we wrap?
This will be my first town meeting in the auditorium.
Ah,
I know
yes.
that's hard to believe, but
Ah.
I have not once had a town meeting in the auditorium, so this will be new for me.
Well, we're glad to welcome you to our
Thank
home
you.
experience.
And I hope people are watching for our town meeting articles of the day. We try to really make them kind of a quick read, but an easy way to educate yourself on the business that we're going to be taking up.
I would add too, the Finance Committee has put together a document that outlines the financial articles within the town warrant article, and sort of expressed our recommendations on all of them, and that can be found on the town website as well.
And I'm just thrilled about the facilities master plan too, but specifically the middle school. It represents a generational investment in our students.
And we'll let the chair of our select board have a near final word.
My word is please attend. Your vote matters,
you.
and it's one opportunity to truly influence what happens in our community.
Those very, very true words. And as the person who has the responsibility of presiding over a town meeting, it's a joy to see vital, constructive debate, always courteous, of course, but debate in any case. And the reason that we want that is because we speak, when we make the judgments for town meeting, we speak as the legislature, and we create generational results, like what might happen at the middle school, which will absolutely affect generations, as the case may be. So I invite you lastly to North Andover Open Town Meeting. Our annual town meeting will commence at 6:30 on Tuesday, May 16th, and it will be a joy to welcome you all. And I promise you that we will experience a safe, we will be, by the way, for those who feel that they are immunocompromised or just want to be careful, a special must mask wear section. but it is not a requirement for the remainder of the venue. And we will have, as usual, a fair, open, and efficient meeting. Thank you all for your participation and your service to town government and our community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.